no way I'm going. There ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No. There ain't got no way I'm gonna make it.
So Scott, in 2017, Scott and his wife, Carrie, started Inspired Stewardship as a business to serve Christian men and couples that are struggling to live out their calling. They work to help align the way you use your time, your talent, and your treasures so that you can identify and live a fully authentic life that allows you to authentically live your calling, serve others, and provide for your family. As certified human behavior consultants and members of the John Maxwell Team, they focus on helping you understand yourself, understand others, and through that understanding, build the kingdom. After almost 30 years in education, Scott and Carrie founded Inspired Stewardship to live out their calling on coaching in 2011. This is now a full-time business offering assistance through one-on-one coaching, speaking, and workshops. His book, Inspired Living, Assemble the Puzzle of Your Calling by Mastering Your Time, Your Talent, and Your Treasures, was published by Morgan James July 2nd, 2024. He is an expert in helping folks transition from working to living their calling, whatever that looks like for them. So without further ado, let us welcome our special guest tonight, Scott Maderer.
Hey, welcome, Scott. How are you, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here with us.
Yes.
We appreciate you, and it's good to see you and good to have you. So, are you ready?
I'm ready when you are. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
It always sounds like a trick question when people ask you that. It's like, are you ready?
Are you ready?
What are you doing?
It's all good. It's all good.
Are you sneaking up behind me? What am I supposed to be ready for?
Wonderful. I like your spirit. I like your drive. I like your vibe. It means we're going to have a wonderful time. And certainly the people that are seeing this and those who are going to see this later on, they will be inspired, I'm sure. So, Scott, here we go. How did you recognize your calling in life? And when that moment happened, what did it mean to you? What did it feel like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And
Thank
the
you.
short answer is I don't know if there's a quote moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think discovering our calling is really less about the destination and more about the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less, quote, I've arrived at my calling, and it's more, oh, I've uncovered another piece of it. I've discovered another piece of it. I found another section or discovered a new way of looking at something or uncovering it. I think God kind of knows the plan in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we don't get that knowledge, and honestly, I'm kind of glad I don't, because I'm not so sure I would really want to know all of the stuff that was going to happen to me before it happened, but because I'd probably make different choices and I wouldn't end up in a good place. So I haven't really had a single moment in time, but instead I've had a lot of nuggets that when I look backwards, I can connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, they didn't feel like, quote, discovering my calling. Looking back, I realized they were.
Okay.
So, for example, I was a school teacher for 16 years. What I loved about teaching was those moments when you were interacting with the kid, you were working with them, you were helping them uncover, what do I want to be when I grow up? What kind of personality do I have? What kind of person am I? Not just teaching the content.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, when I worked later, I moved into the corporate world. And in the corporate world, my gifting and the thing that I was really good at was developing other leaders. I kept getting promoted because I kept replacing myself.
Okay.
I would train my team until they could do what they needed to do without me.
Uh-huh.
And then they'd be like, well, we kind of like having you around, so we got to give you another job, and they'd give me a promotion, and I kind of replaced myself.
Okay.
And that development was part of what I did. And then I had some personal experiences during that same transition when I went from teaching to the corporate world, where my wife and I went through some pretty serious financial issues. We discovered, I actually was suicidal because of finances. We
Mhm.
nearly got divorced because of finances.
Yeah.
And as we were going through all of that, and I'm happy to unpack any more of that you need, but
Mhm.
as we were going through all of that, we dramatically changed the way we were living. We kind of came to a point where it was like, no, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to realign our life in a really dramatically different way. And some people from outside started noticing, and they'd come up and they're like, okay, you and your wife are really weird, and you're doing really weird stuff.
Uh-huh.
Could you help us be weird? you know? And so we
Yeah.
started working with other people, and it started as a ministry. And eventually I realized, wait a minute, that is really when all of the different pieces that I've been putting into place over the last
Mhm.
30 years kind of
Yeah.
all showed up in those moments of coaching and helping other people discover their calling, helping them figure out their path forward. That's when I came alive. And so that's why the coaching business was born. And at least for today,
Yeah.
that's the most authentic way I've found to live out my calling. However, I leave that open to change in the future as I discover more pieces of it and God lays out more things before me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being absolutely vulnerable from the beginning. There are two things that you said that stood out to me and sort of resonated destination really, but it's about the experience that you have along the way because your focus is more on the process. And I really love that. Additionally, you said that it is better to enjoy how it unfolds layer after layer after layer over time. And one of the reasons why that is important is because I think, Scott, a lot of people, especially Christians, become really frustrated because they don't understand how to truly connect with their inner calling and their inner purpose. And they spend a lot of time, resources going in the direction that is way off track. How do we help people to stay on the right path in terms of how they embrace their true calling so that the life they live going forward becomes one of fulfillment and not of frustration and depression like so many I've seen are experiencing? How do we help them to get there? Are you hearing me, Scott? Gabriella, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you, Andy.
Okay, we seem to have lost transmission with Scott there. Wow. Come on, technology. Okay, it looks like he's probably is gonna refresh and come back in.
And
I
love
hope.
back in.
Wow, what struck you about what he said thus far?
The same thing you said, and in terms of the calling, now usually when we think about the calling, we think about okay, it's one particular destination. Okay, when we reach here, this is what we're supposed to be doing. But the
Yeah,
fact that he's saying it's a journey and you're just uncovering as you go, it opens the idea that you know what you could be in purpose now. You could have been your calling now, and then when that time fades out, you may have to go into something else, which might be your calling as well. So it's not really a fixed thing that says this is what you're going to do only. God could use you in different levels and stages of your journey. So I find that was really interesting. I never looked at it like that because I was going to ask him how. But he doesn't know what your calling is for sure. But the fact that he
yeah,
said, yeah, is not really that. It's a layers. So, wow.
yes, yeah, and I love it because sometimes we want the whole thing
Yeah.
and we realize that that's not how it works. You
Yeah.
know, God gives us the experience in stages
In
of
stages.
becoming, and we
Yeah.
only get it when we have discovered how to manage the current stage that we are in, and then He takes us to the next level.
It's like
So,
money.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
if you can't manage the money that you have, the little that you have, then what
Yeah,
is going to happen when you get more? So it's the same
exactly.
exact
Yeah,
concept.
yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, he's back. Can you hear us, Scott? All right. So, the question that I wanted to get in terms of what you said is you looked at your experience and you saw everything happening in layers. And it was more about the process rather than a final destination. How do we get folks, especially Christian folks, to realize that they have to be willing to take these steps and not just get the whole thing at the same time, because there's no way they're going to be able to handle it? How
Right.
do you help them embrace the process step by step?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is exactly what you just said, focusing on rather than the whole picture, rather than the whole journey, rather than where am I going to finally end up, just paying attention to what's that small next action that I can take. What's that
Hmm.
single small thing that I can do that moves me forward?
Right.
So often we want an event that changes our life. We want that, home run that fixes everything. And that's
Yeah.
not really how things change. That's not really what happens. It's not that it's impossible. I mean, yes, sometimes we have life-changing events that just shake us to the core. But honestly, most of the change that we have is made up of little bitty actions that we do over and over and over again, consistently over time. And if those are improving, they move you in a good direction.
Yeah.
Think about habits, right? Habits, just getting up in the morning at a certain time. It's a habit. We talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Spending time in the Bible. You can develop a habit to do that. You can also develop a habit to pig out and eat ice cream all night long. You can also develop a habit to binge on Netflix. Some of those habits probably serve you well and move you in a positive direction. Some of those habits actually hurt you and move you in a negative direction. But in either case, a one-off time, that one night that you just kind of freak out and binge on ice cream, that's not going to kill you. It's
Yeah.
not going to destroy your life.
Hmm.
But doing that over and over and over again, that's going to add up to bad things. Same thing happens with good things. If
Yeah.
you find those small activities that move you in the right direction and then just repeat them over and over again. So a lot of it is helping people focus on that part of it. The second component, and this is probably the more important one, and it's also the harder one,
Hmm.
is stepping back and realizing there's a difference between a goal or a movement or even a career or a job. There's a difference between all of those things and our calling.
Okay.
Our calling is that deeper drive, that deeper purpose, that deeper why that moves us forward. And all too often, people start coming up with goals. I want to lose weight. I want to exercise better. I want to get my money in order. I want to this. I want to that. I want to get a new job. I want to get a new house. Those are all goals.
Yeah.
And I know they're a goal because by definition, a goal has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end.
Yeah.
I want to lose weight. I'm losing weight. I've lost weight, right? Beginning, middle, end.
Yeah.
Or I want to lose weight. I'm not losing weight. I haven't lost weight. Beginning, middle, and end. It's whether
Yes.
it works or not. Where a why or a purpose or a driving or calling, it's deeper than that. It's more encompassing. It's the reason why you want to lose the weight, or it's the reason why you want to get your money in order, or it's the reason why you want a new house. Because let's face it, most of us don't want, quote, a new house. We don't want to get out of debt. We don't want to get healthy. We want to be around, from healthy. We want to be around more so we can spend time with the people that we love and pour into them and be in community and fellowship and not feel bad all the time. We want to get our money in order.
Right.
Not because we want our money in order, but because we want to be able to do the things that we're called to do, whether it's giving, whether it's tithing, whether it's providing, whatever it is, we're called to do that. We need to have our money straight so we can do those things, that we can live out, authentically, whether
Absolutely.
we want to do whatever it is. So all of those things have an underlying purpose of, usually it's around freedom or family or fellowship or connection. These sorts of things are the real whys that drive us. And until you understand your why, you'll just move from goal to goal without any purpose, without any drive, and you'll not know the difference between a distraction and something that's actually moving you in the direction that God wants you to go. There's a reason. I have a squirrel on the shelf behind me, and the reason I have a squirrel is because I ask that question all the time. Is this a squirrel? Or is this actually an opportunity that God's putting in front of me? Is it a distraction or does it serve a purpose?
Okay. I get it. I get it. Wow. So that's very important, folks. And I hope for those who are listening that they really understand the length, the depth, and the breadth and the height of what you just shared, because it's extremely important to understand that we have to identify the reason for what we are doing the things in life for, not just the goal. So, Scott, you shared about a time when you went through tremendous periods of depression
Mhm.
with regards to mismanagement of funds and being in debt and so on. How did you create that kind of mindset and that level of discipline that got you to the place where you decided, okay, this is not working for me. The end result may be something worse than what I'm experiencing now. I have to make a paradigm shift. What was that moment or time or that period like for you?
Yeah, so I didn't. Yeah, it's not me that made that shift. It's this is really a God thing.
Ah,
So
I get.
I was at a period where I was very depressed because of finances. At the time, I was a school teacher. We were in debt more money than I made in a year. I was protecting my wife, so I wasn't communicating with her. I wasn't sharing with her. I was going to protect her from all of this.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, my wife is a smart lady. She knew what was going on, but
Right,
she was not talking to me because she didn't want to stress me out. And
right.
so here we are drifting apart, not talking to each other. I'm taking on all of this burden. It really wasn't mine alone. My wife is taking on a bunch of burden. Wasn't really hers alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally began to plot. I would drive home late at night on a very curvy road, and I began to plan on, well, if I drove off this road, it would look like I fell asleep.
Wow.
Now, here's the irony to that. I listened to talk radio on the drive home to keep me
Mhm.
awake.
Okay.
So I'm listening to talk radio to keep me awake while I'm thinking about pretending to fall asleep. You
Mm.
know, you think about that cognitive dissonance that your
Yes.
brain is doing there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they changed the lineup at night on the radio and they started playing replays of the Dave Ramsey show, which y'all may know of Dave Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these people started coming on and they started talking about getting debt free and they started talking about living a different way. And I literally got mad. I started yelling at the radio because it's like, how stupid is this? Nobody can do this.
Yeah.
And I realized after about 3 days of this that it was the first 3 days where I'd driven home and not thought about driving off the road.
Wow.
And at the time, I was actually kind of alienated from church and community and that kind of thing. I was isolating myself. And I realized in all of that kind of coming together, I kind of heard stories that connected to me in a way that they weren't exactly the same as mine, but they were close enough that I was like, wait a minute, if this person could do that. And the one thing they had in common is they all opened back up to community, connection. They came clean to their wife, these sorts of
Yeah.
things. And so I basically resolved, I'm like, well, it's worth one last shot. So on Saturday, I'm going to sit down with my wife and we're going to talk about this and see what we can do different.
Okay.
So I took my wife down to the lake and I said, okay, I need to tell you what's going on. And I told her what was going on. And she's like, yeah, I know all of this already. And
Hmm.
I said, well, I've been listening to this guy on the radio at night. She goes, you mean Dave Ramsey? Because I've been listening to him during the daytime.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it was one of those moments when I really felt the presence of God and going, look, I'm putting this stuff in your place. I'm putting it in front of you. You have to decide whether you're going to pick it up or not.
Right.
I'm not going to force you,
Yeah.
but I'm going to show you. And you get to decide. And out of that, we began to change what we were doing. We got plugged back into church and community. I started opening myself to friends and family. I got some therapy and some treatment and that sort of thing as well. And all of that kind of came together to begin to let us turn that around, both financially, but even more spiritually and relationally. And now, all of that is spilled through to this day. And that was back in 2006 when we started that.
Wow. Awesome, Scott. And one of the reasons why I had to get that question in is because we just recently came out of a marriage retreat Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the last weekend gone. And one of the key things was communication between husband and wife.
Yep.
And so my co-host was the facilitator. She did an awesome job dealing with that. And now I'm gonna just hand you over to Gabriella, and after that we're gonna get a video played. But she can ask you a couple questions about that because I know she's burning to get on square with you, Scott. So Gabriella, there you go.
Thank you so much, Andy. Good night, Scott. I'm listening to you, and you are really, really inspiring me tonight. And thank you for being so vulnerable and open with us. Really, really open. So, what I would like to find out, I wouldn't go to the couples yet, but as speaking to the men who may be in the audience and really grappling with finances, really thinking, okay, my role as a man in the household is to protect, right? And you chose that over communicating with your wife. Could you tell us how you would have overcame that hurdle? Because as a man, you want to protect, you want to provide, but at the same time there was that imbalance where you were not able to communicate with your wife. How did you all work out that as a couple?
So I think I began to realize a few things. One was, as you said, as a man, I'm driven to protect, I'm driven to provide. I feel like that's a role that I have.
Yeah.
I feel like that, and again, I think most men feel that way.
Yes.
But at the same time, that doesn't mean that I have to do it alone. And I think that's
Right.
the misunderstanding. That's the misconnection.
Yeah.
Is we're meant to have helpmates. We're meant to have community, and that's our spouse. But that's even bigger than that. It's the community around us. We're not meant to live in isolation. You go again. That's biblical. You look at the Bible. It's all about community. It's all about coming together.
Yes.
And relationship. And when we turn away from that, is when we end up in those dark places. And so it's the difference between realizing I have a role as a provider and a protector, and I have to do that alone. Those aren't the same things.
Yeah.
Doing your role doesn't mean doing it by myself. And so my wife is able to support me in that. I tell people my wife is the voice of God. And what I mean by that isn't that I do everything my wife says and she's not, I don't mean anything negative.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got an empathic gift that I don't have. She
Right.
can walk in and sense things that I can't sense. I trust that in her. So when she looks at something and goes, this doesn't feel right to me. I used to ignore that to my detriment.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, okay, it doesn't feel right. Something's wrong. Let me figure out what it is. Let's figure out what it is, because we either need to fix it or we need to avoid it, because there is something wrong here. She may not be able to articulate it, but it's there, and I can trust her voice in those situations. Used to, I took it all on myself. I'm the one that has to know whether this is good or bad. No, he's got a gifting in that in a way that I don't have.
Yeah.
I'd be a fool to not listen to that, And so it's that difference between I'm the protector and provider and I'm the sole protector and provider. Because after all, at the end of the day, really and truly, God's the ultimate protector and provider.
Yes.
We're secondary to that already. So realize that doesn't mean you have to do it alone.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that. I love that explanation. So when it comes to couples, when it comes to partnership, because persons would have been looking on, I'm like, y'all are weird, because you don't hardly see couples walking in alignment and walking into their calling together as partners, because you'll be like, oh my God, it might be clashing, and in that setting, it might be difficult because, at home, husband and wife, but then being in a partnership, when it comes to business or anything like that, could be tricky. So how have you all overcome those situations? What did you all do that will, bridge that gap when it comes to partnership as a couple?
I think it's no different than what happens in a marriage or in a partnership between two people that aren't married, in that successful partnerships are about clarity and communication. And clarity is knowing kind of, what are you good at? What am I good at? What are your roles? What are my roles? What are my strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are my weaknesses? What are you, all of that, right? Knowing that stuff, clear on that, and being very direct and clear, which leads us right into communication, which is that ability to sit down and talk to each other and say, hey, this is your strength. This is my strength. let's make sure we work together on this, and you do what you're good at, and I do what I'm good at, and we communicate about it, but that doesn't mean either one of us is micromanaging the other, or we're just communicating. And so when people realize that most of the stress and strain that you have in partnerships, whether that's business, whether that's personal, is usually because of miscommunication and lack of clarity. My wife, so if you know what DISC is a personality communication profiling system that I've been trained in, and I like it because it's simple enough I can hold it in my head. And it basically divides people into 4 quadrants. We're actually all a blend of them, so it's not like you're just one of them. But my wife and I are literally opposites on that characteristic traits. So naturally, we would have friction because it's like I speak German and she speaks French. And when someone speaks French and I speak German, I don't solve the problem by yelling louder in German. I solve the problem by either teaching them German or learning French. You know, and it's easier for me to learn French. I can take responsibility for learning French. I can't really force them to learn German. So I've worked to learn to communicate in the way that my wife understands. Guess what? She's on the other side speaking French going, you know, he speaks German. I could probably learn German. And so she's working to communicate in the way that I need. And because of that, we end up coming together. And again, that happens with any kind of communication, any kind of partnership, any kind of relationship. When you start realizing where your differences are and where your likenesses are, and then own that to the extent to say, it's on me to shift. I don't expect everyone else to change to meet me. I have to work to meet them. And when you do that and you own that, then all of a sudden it starts getting easier, never easy, but easier to begin to connect and communicate in an authentic way.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Yes. One more question before I give you over to Andy. How do you help persons in terms of assembling a puzzle together? How do you help persons to bridge and bring that main pieces together when it comes to, you know, the relationship and comes to their calling?
So that, you know, that's why I do use that analogy of assembling a puzzle, because I do think figuring out this stuff is not only like a puzzle, but imagine for a minute you were doing a jigsaw puzzle, and first off, not all of the pieces are in the box that need to be in the box, and there's some pieces in the box from a puzzle that's not your puzzle. And the picture on the box that you're using to kind of say, this is what I'm going to put together, keeps changing. That's really more what our life is like, right? You know? And sometimes there's stuff there that somebody's added to your plate that you're like, I didn't ask for this. Where did this come from? And other times it's like, wait, I need this piece, and this piece it's not here yet. You know, it doesn't exist yet. And then also the picture isn't always perfectly clear. It's more shifting and changing. And so when you step back and you realize that, that's again going back to that thing about what I said about it's the journey, not the destination. It's a puzzle that you're putting together, but you also have to hold it with an open hand. And I think all too often as people, you know, we want to hold on to things with a closed fist. We grab a hold of it, and it's like, I don't want to let this go. I don't want to let this shift because it's mine. It belongs to me. That happens a lot as us with humans and money. You know, this is my money. I'm going to hold on to it. And the problem with that is, things can't get out because you're holding on so tight, but things can't get in either. And when you realize that, and you realize that God's saying, relax, calm down, open your hand, let loose. And yes, some things are going to flow out of your life, but things are also going to flow into your life. And that puzzle's going to get clearer, and that picture's going to get clearer, and you'll be able to discover it if you just stop holding on to the picture that you've already got. That's, by the way, not the right picture anyway. You know, but we feel like it's right because it's comfortable. Because it's the thing that we're comfortable with, and we have to realize that, you know, a lot of times comfort is actually the enemy of being where we need to be, because often where we need to be goes through discomfort. It goes through a period of being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, Andy. I really love it. I really love it, Scott.
I love it. I love it. I love it. This is awesome. This is wonderful. So we're gonna give Scott a breather, and we're gonna bring this video to the fore, and then we're gonna have some commentary from him after. Next.
A lot of us have things that we're gifted in, and because we're gifted in it, it comes easy to us. And so we're actually blind to the fact that it's gifting, because it's the thing that, think of it, every one of us has something that comes easy enough to us that when somebody else goes, man, how do you do that? Our first instinct is to go, everyone can do that, to kind of almost dismiss it and make it smaller than it is. Those are the things that oftentimes we're so blind to, we don't even recognize that those are things that probably are strengths, wiring, they're giftings that we've been given, they're resources that we have.
Wow. Hey, Scott, just break down that for us a little bit so that we get the gist of it. 'Cause it sounds really nourishing. It sounds good, food for the soul. But from your perspective, give us a deeper insight on the message you're projecting in that video.
So what I'm talking about there is, I think all too often, and again, this is just a really human thing. We are blind to the things that we're actually the best at.
Mm.
Mhm.
Because when something comes, quote, easy to us,
Yeah.
our immediate assumption is, oh, well, this is just easy.
Mm.
Everyone can do it. And yet the reality is, if you start talking to other people, about whatever it is. So as an example, I love public speaking.
Right.
Put a microphone in my face, I'll talk.
Yep.
You probably noticed that tonight.
Yes.
It doesn't bother me a bit. I'll just ask me a question. Let's go. We'll
Let's
come.
go.
I don't care if there's 5 people in front of me or 50,000 people in front of me.
Mhm.
I don't have that natural fear of getting up and speaking.
Right.
And yet I talk to people and they're like, how do you do that? I'm like, well, you just go up there and start talking. What are you talking about? It's easy. It's not easy. It's
Yes.
just something that I've, both by developing it and by natural gifting, comes easy to me. Guess what? Writing comes hard to me.
Yeah.
Writing is not something that I'm good at. Well, actually, I am good at it. It's just really hard work for me to get good at it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It exhausts me.
Hmm.
Yet I wanted to write a book. I'm good at speaking. I'm not good at writing. So I didn't write a book. I talked a book. I said, fine, I'm going to work with what I'm good at. I'm going to work at my strengths. The same thing happens to all of us. But when we're blind to that, when we push that away, when we say, oh, no, everybody can do that. That's easy. Everyone can do that. We stop working in our own strengths. We stop living in our own giftings because we ignore it. We push it away. We dismiss it. It's the difference between humility and false humility. It is humility, right, is not taking on attributes and things that don't really belong to you. That's false, or that's humility. False humility is when you know you're good at something and you actually don't admit it. You kind of do that. Somebody says, oh, you're a good speaker. And you go, oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at it. And then and inside you're going, yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
That's false humility. And that is not, that's not what being humble is about. That's not what God is calling us to do when he says be humble. God is saying, admit that, hey, guess what? That speaking ability did not come to you alone. God gave it to us and we've developed it, and those opportunities and those things, those blessings that have come to us, they were curated for us, but that doesn't mean that we're not good at it. It's taking the compliment. It's taking ownership for those things that you're actually able to do.
Wow. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Scott. So tell us a bit about inspired living and what inspired you to do inspired living. And what's the core message, Scott, that you want people to get out of the publication? Seeing that it basically has the ability to extend to them, communicate to them what you have been through, how you overcame, and now you're able to share with them at a higher level.
So a lot of inspired living, it came from the idea of my coaching and the work that I do with people in coaching is I found that a lot of folks think they have a time problem or they have a money problem.
Mm-hmm.
They come to me for help because they're like, I know there's something I'm supposed to be doing, but I can't either get my time right or I can't get my money right to let me do it. I feel stuck because my time and my money are wrong.
Yeah.
And then I tricked them and I actually only work on talent. Because the truth is, if you've got a money problem or a time problem, you really don't have a money or time problem. You have a you problem.
Mm.
Because it's not about how your time and money is managed. It's about how you manage yourself
Yeah.
when it comes to time and money.
Correct.
And when you realize that, that's both infuriating and empowering. Because part of it is empowering because you go, yes, I've got control. Infuriating because it means, it's on me. I got to do something. I've got to take action. And so what I wanted to do was break down how we look at time and money and bring it to that third area of talent and say, this is how you can approach these things to get out of your own way and start moving forward towards the thing that God is calling you to do.
Mm.
So as part of that, I did not take the approach of writing a process book. Not that there's anything wrong with process books, but let me tell you what I mean. A process book is one that says, start here and end here. Do these steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The problem with that is it only works is if you start in the same place and you want to end up at the same place. It works if you start on step 1 and you want to get to step 5. It doesn't work if your journey maybe is called to be a little bit different. And so instead, in the book, I wrote frameworks. And the thing about a framework is it's like a paradigm. It's a way of looking at something. And when you find a framework that works, the neat thing is it will apply no matter where you start and no matter where you end. You don't have to all start at the same spot, and you don't have to all have the same destination. And so I put these frameworks in place for how we look at our time, how we look at our money, and how we look at ourselves as a talent component. And that's the most important part, so that we could kind of get out of our own way and start actually living out the calling that God has given us.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can folks get a copy of the publication, Scott?
So I actually put together a page just for your listeners that has all of that information, including the book on it. So if you go to my website, which is inspiredstewardship.com, and then just /Andys, ANDYS, no apostrophe, no spaces.
Yeah.
What you'll find there is a link to some free resources, but there's also a link to purchasing the book as well. You can find it anywhere books are sold, online or off as well. But that's probably the easiest way to find it in the online stores.
Mm.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that, Scott, and we appreciate you. Wonderful. So now we're going to have the thought for the week. And I hope that it helps us to continue to be inspired as we continue to live an inspired life with Scott Maderer. Thought of the week. When we engage in what we don't know more than what we do know, it is then we create the opportunity for growth. When we engage in what we don't know more than what we do know, it is then we create the opportunity for growth. And notice I put growth in caps because that's the end result that we're seeking. That's the most important thing that matters in life. At least grow 1% one day at a time. Okay, so Gabriella, it's over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I felt like it was like an ouch moment just now. I was like, ouch! It was a you problem. Yeah, that really hit me just now. There is a you problem. But
I
thanks.
would apologize, but I'm not going to
No,
apologize.
don't. You don't need to. You don't need to. You don't need
It's
to.
real.
That's
It's
something I
real.
need to just. Yeah, you're being real. You're being real.
Yeah.
When it comes to our mindset shift, right? When it comes to these things, when it comes to finances, when it comes to your passion, your calling, what mindset shift should persons have that will radically change how they view those aspects of time and talent and treasure?
So I think the biggest one is recognizing an abundance mindset. I think a lot of decisions we make are made out of fear,
Yeah.
fear of not enough. It's a scarcity mindset. And when we start looking at things as abundant, endless, provided for us, it lets us start making different decisions. It lets us be more generous. It also lets us reorient how we do things. And one of the ways to recognize this is kind of how your language sounds.
Yeah.
And here's what I mean. Let me use time as an example, just because it's an easy one. People will say something like, I'm busy. We all use that phrase, right? I'm busy.
Yeah.
It's become a badge of honor. It's almost like, hey, I'm busy.
I'm busy.
Yeah. And everybody's like, oh yeah, me too. I'm busy too. All busy means is doing a lot of stuff. It doesn't actually mean that you're doing anything that matters. It just means you're doing a bunch of stuff. So,
ouch.
Hey, it's true though. So here's an example. If I wanted to hire you, I've got a pile of rocks in my backyard, and I want to hire you to go in my backyard and spend all day. Okay, you're allowed to take a break every once in a while, but basically all day long, you want to pick up a rock from one side of the yard, you're going to carry it to the other side of the yard, you're going to put it in a pile, and you're going to keep doing that. And when you run out of rocks, you're going to pick them up from the new pile that you just built and take them back to where the old pile was and set them down. And that's it. You're just going to move rocks back and forth all day long, and I'll pay you $100 a day. Would you do it?
Yeah.
For $100? Okay. Would you do it forever?
I don't know. No, me not.
Or is there a point where you'd be like, I've got enough money now, and I kind of could probably go find something else to do.
Something else. Maybe it's possible.
Right? Because you probably would run, at some point, the boringness of just moving a pile of rock. Now, on the other hand, if you were building a wall or a cathedral or a house with those rocks, it had more purpose behind it, you'd probably do it a little longer. Okay. And by the way, I don't care. I've done this with lots of people. Some people say yes at $100. Some people, if they say no, I'll go to 1,000. If they say no, I'll go to 10,000.
Yeah.
Everyone has a number. Okay.
Yeah.
There's at some point I'm going to say a number, and you're going to go, oh yeah, I do it then. But then also everyone has a number where they're like, yeah, but when I had this much in the bank, I'd quit. And it's like, interesting. What I'm talking about there is that's busy work. It doesn't have a purpose behind it. It doesn't have a meaning behind it. It doesn't belong to something bigger than you. It doesn't belong to something that matters. And when you start doing that, then you're like, at some point you just stop, you burn out. Yeah. And so when we talk about living to our calling, when we talk about doing work that matters, we have to look at it from a place of abundance and from a place of purpose and from a place of belonging, and it makes us make different decisions. So for instance, instead of saying, I don't have time to do that, you have to say, that's not a priority for me right now. Okay. Because here's what's interesting. Imagine for a minute you're sitting there late at day, you're typing away on your computer, and your coworker comes over and they're like, hey, is it your daughter's soccer game tonight? Don't you need to head out so you can go to your daughter's soccer game? If you say, well, I'm too busy, they'll pat you on the back and go, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
And if on the other hand, you turn around and you go, you know what? It's really just not a priority to make it to my daughter's soccer game. What would they do? They'd probably smack you upside the head, And what's more, you'd probably deserve it, But that's really what you're saying when you say I'm too busy. You're saying that's not a priority. Yeah. Same thing happens with money. When you spend money on one thing, you can't spend it on something else. That's called opportunity cost. It's just a law. You can't spend the same dollar twice. Yeah. So what happens? If I spend my dollars on that, I'm saying that is important to me, and it's more important than something else that I'm not spending dollars on. I'm prioritizing. When you recognize that every decision you make is a statement of where you're putting your priorities, you make different decisions. Because every decision you make comes down to an opportunity cost. It comes down to a decision of priority. It comes down to what you're not just saying is important, but actually living out as is important. Because you can tell me all day long that your family's important, but are they showing up in your bank account, and are they showing up on your calendar? And if the answer is no, they're really not that important to you, despite what you say.
True.
Same thing for God. If you say God is important to you, are you spending time with God every day? Are you spending money through generosity and giving and other things that God calls us to do? If you're not, maybe God's not all that important to you. So it's not about what you say, it's actually about what you do that ends up mattering.
When it comes to the mindset in terms of finances, why you think money is a spiritually charged topic when it comes to Christians? And I'm going back on this part here when you talk about holding on. Even in those moments when you want to give or you want to be generous or you want to, and sometimes you yourself struggling, but you want to hold on. So for those who actually in that moment where they want to open their hands, but at the same time I want to close it because I really can't help other persons right now, what will be your encouragement to them, or what will you tell them tonight?
A couple of things. So the first one is this. When we hold on to money because that's the thing that's going to give us security, we're basically making an idol out of money. We're saying that money is that golden calf.
Ouch.
Money is the thing that provides for us. Money is our source of security. Money is our source of safety. And yet, as believers, that's not what we're supposed to put our security in. We're supposed to put our security in God and recognize that relationship comes before everything else. Right. So if God is calling for us to give, even in a way that seems irrational, to not do it, to not be obedient in that, is really making an idol out of money. It's putting God after money as opposed to before money. That can be a really challenging thing. So that's the bitter pill, that we have to swallow and recognize.
Yeah.
But then stepping back from that, here's the other thing. God doesn't tell us that being generous is what, quote, gets our way into heaven. It's not. Generosity is what we do to earn grace.
Yeah.
Right. It's that believing in grace allows us to be generous.
Yeah.
We put the cart before the horse sometimes.
Yeah.
We start thinking about giving as a rule, as a responsibility, as a duty, as a task, as opposed to something we're blessed to do.
Yeah.
And when we do that, it messes our mind up. And by the way, I think this is why God talked about money so much. I mean, you read the Bible, there are tons of passages in there about money.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason for that. I think God was like, okay, they're going to screw this up, so let me talk about it a lot. It's obvious. You read it, and there's passage after passage after passage of, okay, folks, let me explain it one more time because you haven't got it in the last 1800, so let me give it one. Because we do screw it up. So that's the third part, is recognize to have the grace for the fact that you're going to screw it up. It's okay. We're not called to be perfect. We're called to be better.
Yeah.
We're strive for better. It's the growth that you were just talking about in the thought for the day. It's that idea of do the uncomfortable things so that you get better. And so sometimes that means that you're not giving for a little while. Don't like that. By the way, we started giving while we were getting out of debt, gave all the way through it, and continue to give to this day. But that kind of detail of what do you do and what do you don't do, that's a very personal decision. That's a thing about how you pray and think and dwell, and what are you being called to do with God. And that's a struggle that I think a lot of us go through. And it's, again, that's one of the things we work on in coaching sometimes is, what are you being called to do? And when what's interesting is very often the initial thought is, I can't do this, I can't give, I don't have enough, I'm not abundant, I don't have it. And as their mind begins to shift to abundance, they recognize that, oh, wait a minute, I can give. Maybe sometimes it's giving in time instead of money, or maybe it's doing this instead of that, but I can.
Yeah.
And they find ways to do it where if you had asked them 6 weeks ago, they would have said, it's impossible. There's just no possible way I could do that. I couldn't even give $2 a week. And then they end up giving $100 a week, because it just appears once they start looking at things a different way.
Yeah.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's quiet up.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Have you ever felt like you were not in alignment, or like this particular puzzle that you're working on wasn't the right fit, or it wasn't seeing your way during that time? And what did you do personally to kind of reset and get back into that focus?
I always struggle with that on days that end in Y.
Yeah.
Okay, so just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
Every
Saturday,
day.
Sunday. Other than that, I'm good. No, I
Wow.
think that's the truth. Is we do all struggle with it every
Yeah.
day because we don't get to see the picture. Again, that picture on the box
Mhm.
is never completely clear to us,
Yeah.
and that's both. That's exciting at one level,
Mhm.
and it's terrifying,
Scary.
at another.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
And but I think that's what we're called to do, because that is part of what trusting God is, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Is leaning into that belief that, okay, wait, I can't see the whole picture, but God can.
Mhm.
And God works all things to good. So if I lean into that trust, even if it gets rough right now, it's going to get better.
Yes.
And I don't know what better is, by the way. Better, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what that's going to feel like. I don't know, better doesn't mean I'm going to have more zeros in my bank account. It might, but it also might be something completely different,
Correct.
But there's going to be blessings that are going to show up. There's going to be connections that are going to show up. There's going to be things that will come into your life. And in retrospect, you'll look back at them years later and you'll go, oh, that's why that happened. Okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we couldn't see it at the time, and we never do. We're blind to it. It reminds me of the quote by, I think it's attributed to Mark Twain, but it doesn't really sound like something Mark Twain would say, so I'm not sure if it's really authentically something he said. But he said basically, one of the best days in my life was the day I realized there was a God, and the second best day is when I realized it wasn't me. And I think that's part of it, is when we can let go of being the person that knows all the answer
Mm-hmm.
and lean into the fact that, no, that's not what we're not supposed to know all the answers. We're just supposed to follow the path,
Yeah.
and love for other people, care for other people, care for ourselves, take care of the world around us, do those things, and let the other stuff be outside of our pay grade, outside of our job description, and let go of it. Okay, that's when we can lean into that authentically. Now, again, going back to the beginning when I said I only struggle that on days with end and Y. Yeah, I struggle with that every day.
Yeah.
And I predict I'll struggle with that the rest of my life, because I do want to be the controller, right? I do want to be in control of my life. And every time I start grabbing a hold of it and going, I'm in control, God reminds me I'm not in control of my life.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wow. So, Gabriela, you observed something. This audience tonight is really quiet.
Yeah. They are quiet, indeed.
I wonder why. It seems as though Scott has them in a spell.
He's answering all the questions that you're like, wow. Or maybe they're having that ouch moment like me.
Probably.
And really being introspective of their life.
I have been
now.
accused of stepping on toes before whenever I give a message. So.
Yes.
It's all good.
I used to preach a lot in church, and I actually had a congregation member come up to me one time and say, you know what? I have to wear steel-toed boots just to come to church because you step on my toes. I'm like, okay.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, that can happen too.
Yeah.
So, folks, we have Scott Maderer live in Breaking Out of Depression, living an inspired life with Scott Maderer, and he has been giving us so much tokens of love and real life experience, value the content that can really inspire and bring us to a place of inspired living. And he has shown us the different sides. Bernadine S. Wood says, ouch moment. I say ouch moments.
Moments, yeah,
When we realize,
from
hey, it's
success.
not about us, it's not about me, it's about the bigger picture, and ultimately it's about God. So Scott, what does the future look like for you and the wife going ahead? Are there any new projects or stuff that you're working on?
So I am working on a second book. It's going to be at least another year or two before it's done.
Oh,
Again, I talk books, I don't write them, so it takes me a little longer.
yeah.
But and then in the meantime, just getting out and speaking, sharing the message, getting more coaching clients, and working with more individuals that are feeling like, hey, I need some help to get out of my own way, so I can get my time and my money right and do what I'm supposed to do. But just continuing to get the business to grow and to thrive, at least right now. Now, again, tomorrow morning I could get up and God could give me a different message and we could go a different direction. But again, I'll bounce it off and decide, is that a squirrel or is that an actual, was that last night's pizza or is God talking to me? But if it really is something that we're called to do something different, of course we'll pivot and go that direction. But in the meantime, it's really just continuing to live out what we're doing today, because I really do feel authentically that this is the purpose that we have, is to speak to men, to couples, to small business owners, and help them figure out what they're supposed to be doing so that they can do it right.
Mm, absolutely wonderful. So in terms of the live sessions that you have, when you said you enjoy public speaking so much that they give you a mic, it doesn't matter whether it's 5 or 5,000 or whatever the amount, you just go and you deliver. How do you actually prepare if you are given ample notice? Say you're given a month's notice and the audience is 50 and over, and they are senior or getting to a stage of senior citizen, but they have lost their way. It's like being at the crossroads of life and trying to figure out which direction should we go from now, and how should we seek to look forward to retirement. How would you approach a speech like that? Because a lot of people are challenged when they reach that age. They're thinking, I should have done so many things, what do I do now?
Mm-hmm. So I've actually got some activities that I do with folks, and I've done these even in really large crowds because they're thinking activities. There's things that you can kind of do in your head.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what I try to do is just ask questions. And
Mm-hmm.
so as an example, one of the questions that I like to ask folks is what I call the airport question. So the airport question sounds like this. And by the way, I used to travel a lot when I was in the corporate world. I was in airports all the time. That's why I said
Yeah.
this is an airport, because I kind of familiar with airports.
Yeah.
So you know what happened? You ever have been on one of those trips where you fly somewhere, and then when you're flying home, you've got that connection where you land at an airport, and then maybe you got an hour or something to make it to another plane, and then you fly the rest of the way home? You ever have
Yep.
one of those kind of holdovers?
Yep.
So imagine for a minute, you're flying home, you land at that in-between airport, you go bebopping over to the gate to find out whether the plane's there yet or whatever before you grab a bite to eat. You look up as you get to the gate, and it has those dreaded words up there on the sign, flight delayed.
Like delayed. Yeah.
You go up, you talk to the person behind the counter, and you're like, great, this is my connecting flight. How long is it delayed for? They go, 4 hours. You go,
Mm.
yay! So you do what anyone does when they're stuck in an airport in the middle of nowhere. You either go find a place to get a drink, or you find a place to grab a bite to eat, depending on your personal preference and time of day and all of that sort of stuff. So imagine for a minute you're walking into a restaurant. And remember, this is 5 years in the future. So no matter how old you are today, this is 5 years from today. And as you walk into that restaurant, across the restaurant, you hear a voice. Hey, how you doing? Somebody you haven't seen in about 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
They used to live close to you. They've moved away. You got busy. They got busy. You kind of lost touch, but they were a dear friend. And they look up, they're like, hey, are you here long? You go, well, I wasn't going to be, but now I'm here 4 hours. They go, well, I'm here for a couple hours too. Let's grab a bite. Let's grab a table and let's catch up. And so as you sit down at the table next to your friend looks at across the table at you, looks deep in your eyes and says, how have you been? How have things been going these last 5 years? And you look at them and you go, you know what? This has been the best 5 years of my life, because your job is to think about what comes after that word because. What would make you say to your friend 5 years from today that this has been the best 5 years of my life? What would be true about your relationships? What would be true about your spiritual walk? What would be true about your finances? What would be true about your career? What would be true about whatever it is in your life?
Yeah.
And when you can start getting that picture of what would it be to make me say, this is the most blessed I've ever been. And then roll that backwards and go, okay, what now? What can I do today? What small action can I take before I get home tonight? What one thing can I do to begin to move in that direction?
Yeah.
That's really all it takes.
Yeah.
To start breaking free and going, I don't care whether you're, 18 or 88. You can be in a different place in 5 years.
Yeah.
If you start today.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. We have come to the end of this wonderful, engaging, and very thought-provoking episode.
Already.
Yeah. Time really flies when you are enjoying the process of having fun. And that's what we have in such a beautiful way. So, okay, Gabriella, I'm just going to give you one opportunity. I think we should ask Scott that mega question about the mega mic.
About it?
Mega mic.
Right. If he had the opportunity now to speak to millions of persons, what would you like to tell them before you leave tonight?
I think the biggest thing is to recognize that you have the ability to live an abundant life. You have the ability to live an authentic life. Yeah. And when you recognize that you can live out of abundance, live out of authenticity, you can be blessed. And once you discover that, then start taking those actions, start taking those steps. Find that next small step that you can do and do it. And when you recognize that and when you start doing that, that's what gives you the momentum to keep going and to really change your life.
Awesome.
There you have it, folks.
There you have it. So we have been blessed to be with our guest, Scott Maderer, as he spoke about living an inspired life. And I hope that you truly have been inspired to live much more awesomely inspiring as you look forward to your future, particularly in Christ. Don't forget that. Bring him in the mix, keep him there. Let him be the author and the finisher of your faith, Gabriella.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. I really was inspired, although we had a little ouch moments, but it was really inspiring. And thank you so much for bringing it and being so real and being so open with us, because sometimes we just need to hear the simple things. It's not that difficult. Sometimes we just need a reminder. And tonight you brought that. So thank you so much for all your wisdom and all your knowledge. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And sorry, I don't know what happened, but it completely froze earlier. But I'm glad I was able to get back on and reconnect.
No problem.
That's all right. So, Scott, we're going to ask you to stay around for a minute or two as we end and wrap up. Don't leave. But, folks, just remember, in all that you do, keep on doing everything that you can to break out of depression. Until next time, Godspeed, God bless. Bye for now. Take care.
There ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. No.